You prescribed what? My voice was low, dangerous, the kind of quiet that precedes a storm. I held up the patient file, the damning evidence stark against the sterile white of the exam room. Sildenafil? For back pain, Sarah? Really? Sarah, my wife of 15 years, stood across from me, her usual composed doctor's demeanor cracking like thin ice. Her eyes, usually a warm hazel, were now sharp, defensive. Mark, put that down. You have no right to be in my files. No right? I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. I think being your husband gives me a slight right when you're writing prescriptions for our patients that are more suited for a goddamn bachelor party than a medical clinic. It's not what you think, she started, her voice tight. But the tremor in her hands, the way she avoided my gaze, screamed otherwise. Then tell me, Sarah, enlighten me. What exactly should I think when I find out my wife, a respected physician, is handing out Viagra like candy to some patient? I spat the word patient like it was poison. She finally met my eyes, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew. But it was quickly replaced by something cold, calculating. His name is David Miller, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. And it's complicated. Complicated. That was her word for it. My blood ran cold. I knew, right then, in the sterile, brightly lit office of our shared clinic in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, that my life was about to become a whole lot more complicated than I ever imagined. I'm Mark Olson, and until this morning, I thought I had it all. At 45, I was a successful architect, designing sleek, modern homes for the wealthy elite who flocked to the desert for sunshine and golf. Sarah, a year younger, was a dedicated family physician, respected in our community. We had a beautiful house in Paradise Valley, a membership at the Camelback Golf Club, and a life that, from the outside, looked damn near perfect. Sarah had always been driven, ambitious. Even back in med school, she had this laser focus, a determination that both attracted and intimidated me. She was stunning, no doubt. Tall, with a swimmer's build, toned and graceful. Her dark hair was usually pulled back in a practical bun at work, but when she let it down, it cascaded past her shoulders, framing a face that could launch 1,000 ships, or at least a few luxury yachts. She wasn't overly flashy, but she had a natural elegance, a way of carrying herself that turned heads without even trying. We met at a charity gala, cliché, I know. I was immediately drawn to her intelligence and her dry wit, a sharp contrast to the sometimes vapid socialites that populated my world. She was different, grounded, real, or so I thought. Our life in Scottsdale was comfortable, predictable, maybe too predictable. We'd fallen into a routine, a comfortable rhythm of work, dinners, the occasional weekend getaway to Sedona or Vegas. We were good partners, efficient, but somewhere along the way, the spark had dimmed. We were more roommates than lovers, co-captains of a ship sailing on autopilot. Looking back, the signs were there, subtle shifts in her behavior that I, in my blissful ignorance, had brushed aside. Late nights at the clinic, claiming overflowing paperwork. A new, almost secretive protectiveness of her phone. Less intimacy, excused away by stress and fatigue. The classic playbook of infidelity. And I, the seasoned architect, had missed all the blueprints. It started ironically with my own health. A persistent backache had been plaguing me for months. Sarah naturally became my doctor. After a quick examination, she prescribed some muscle relaxants and suggested physical therapy. But the pain lingered. Being a bit of a control freak, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I wanted to review my medical records just to see if there was anything else I could be doing, maybe get a second opinion. Our clinic used a cloud-based electronic health record system. Being a partner in the practice, I had administrative access. It was late one night. Sarah was supposedly catching up on paperwork at the clinic, and I was home, restless and in pain. On a whim, I logged into the system. I pulled up my file, reviewed the notes, the prescriptions. Everything seemed standard, professional, Sarah in doctor mode. Then, curiosity, or maybe a subconscious suspicion, led me down a different path. I started browse recent patient files, ostensibly to see if there were any interesting cases, anything I could learn from. It was a flimsy excuse, even to myself. I was snooping, and that's when I found it. David Miller. Male, 32 years old. Chief complaint, back pain. Prescription, sildenafil. Sildenafil, Viagra. For back pain? My architect's brain, usually focused on blueprints and building codes, suddenly shifted into overdrive, piecing together the illogicality of it all. I knew enough about medicine to know that Viagra wasn't a standard treatment for back pain. Unless there was something else going on. My heart started to pound in my chest. I scrolled further down the file. Sarah's notes were brief, almost dismissive. Patient presents with lower back pain. Exam unremarkable. Prescribed sildenafil for muscle relaxation. Muscle relaxation? That was a new one. And then the appointment history. David Miller had been seeing Sarah every week for the past month. Always for back pain. Always prescribed sildenafil. A cold dread washed over me. I felt sick, betrayed. But a part of me, the rational, architect part, needed more proof. I needed to see it with my own eyes. Our clinic, like most medical facilities these days, had security cameras. Discreet, almost invisible, but they were there. Officially for liability and patient safety. Unofficially for, well, situations like this, I supposed. I knew the security system password. We both did. It was supposed to be for emergencies, for reviewing incidents. But tonight, it was for uncovering the truth. I accessed the security system remotely from my home computer. I navigated to the camera feed for Sarah's office, exam room 2. I scrolled back through the recordings, day by day, week by week, until I reached the dates of David Miller's appointments. The first few recordings were innocuous enough. Sarah in her white coat, professional, detached, examining a young man. But then as I watched, something shifted. A lingering touch, a smile that was a little too warm, a little too personal. And then the recordings from last week. It was after hours. The clinic was deserted, the lights dimmed. Sarah was there, in her office, not in her white coat, but in a sleek black dress that I vaguely recognized from a recent charity event. David Miller was there too, also not in patient attire, but in jeans and a casual shirt. They were talking about back pain. The camera angle wasn't perfect, the audio was muffled, but the images were crystal clear. They were close, intimately close. His hand on her waist, her head tilted back, laughing at something he said. And then the kiss. Long, passionate, undeniable. They kissed again and again. They moved to the exam table, and the camera, bless its strategically placed lens, caught everything. I watched, numb, disbelieving, as my wife, the woman I had built a life with, the woman I trusted implicitly, betrayed me in the most intimate way possible. In our clinic, in her office, on the very exam table where she saw patients all day. The clinical setting, the sterile environment, somehow made it even more grotesque, more of a violation. The recording ended. I sat there, in the darkness of my home office, the glow of the monitor reflecting in my stunned eyes. The truth was undeniable, brutal, and it hit me like a physical blow. Sarah was having an affair with a patient, and she was using her medical license, our clinic, to facilitate it. That's when Sarah walked in, feigning exhaustion, ready to play the dutiful wife. But I was ready for her. I had the file, the recordings, the irrefutable proof. The storm was brewing, and it was about to break. Complicated? I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Is that what you call it? Complicated? Sarah's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Tears welled in her eyes, but I saw no remorse, only fear. Mark, please, let me explain. Explain what, Sarah? Explain how prescribing Viagra for back pain is standard medical practice. Explain how making out with your patient on the exam table is part of the Hippocratic Oath. It just happened, she stammered, the classic, pathetic excuse of a cheater. It wasn't planned. It just developed. Developed? Like a goddamn rash? Sarah, we're talking about an affair. You're a doctor, not a goddamn teenager sneaking around in the back of a movie theater. Don't you dare talk to me like that, she snapped back, her doctor's authority momentarily resurfacing. You have no idea what I've been going through. Oh, enlighten me, Dr. Olson. What exactly have you been going through that justifies sleeping with your patients and turning our clinic into a goddamn love nest? She flinched at my words, the harsh truth hitting home. It's not like that, she insisted weakly. It's not just sex. Oh, even better. So, you're in love with him? With David Miller, Mr. Back Pain Viagra? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. Tell me, Sarah, what's so special about him? Besides the fact that he's young enough to be our son and apparently has a back that requires industrial-strength erectile dysfunction medication. She looked away, her silence speaking volumes. I knew then that it was worse than just a physical fling. There were feelings involved, emotions, something deeper and more destructive. Who is he, Sarah? I demanded, stepping closer, the anger rising in my chest like a tide. Tell me about David Miller. She hesitated for a moment, then sighed, the fight draining out of her. He's a patient. He came in for back pain, like I said. He's been having issues since a car accident last year. And you decided to treat his back pain with Viagra? Come on, Sarah. I'm not an idiot. It wasn't just for the back pain, she admitted, her voice barely audible. He was having other issues. Erectile dysfunction. Stress-related, probably. And the sildenafil can help with muscle relaxation too sometimes. Her explanation was weak, convoluted, a desperate attempt to rationalize the irrational. So, you're telling me you prescribed him Viagra for erectile dysfunction and then decided to personally administer the treatment? The words felt like acid in my mouth. She finally broke down, tears streaming down her face. It just happened, Mark. We connected. He's different. He listens to me. He appreciates me. Something you haven't done in years. Her words stung, even more than the betrayal itself. Appreciates you? Is that what you call it? Sleeping with your doctor? That's appreciation. Don't be like that, she pleaded, her voice choked with sobs. It's not just about sex, Mark. It's about connection, something we lost a long time ago. We lost. I scoffed. Sarah, you lost it. You threw it away. I was here, working my ass off, building a life for us, while you were connecting with your patients in exam room too. The fight was escalating, the air thick with accusations and recriminations. But beneath the anger, a deep sadness was creeping in. The perfect life I thought I had was shattering into a million pieces, and the woman I loved was standing right there, watching it crumble. What do you want, Mark? She asked, her voice weary, defeated. What do you want me to say? I want the truth, Sarah, I said, my voice softening slightly, the anger giving way to a desperate plea. I want to understand. Why? Why him? Why us? She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of guilt, regret, and something else, something that looked almost like pity. Maybe we were just done, Mark. Maybe we just didn't want to admit it. Done. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. Is that it? 15 years, Sarah. 15 years of marriage, of building a life together, and we're just done? She didn't answer, just looked down at the floor, tears still silently falling. In that moment, I knew. It was over. The life I had known, the woman I loved, the future I had imagined, all gone. Replaced by betrayal, lies, and the bitter taste of disillusionment. Get out, Sarah, I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Just get out of my sight. She looked up, startled. Mark! Now, Sarah, I repeated, my voice hardening again. Before I say something I regret. She didn't argue. She just turned and walked out of the exam room, out of the clinic, and out of my life, leaving me standing there, holding the file, the damning evidence of her betrayal, in the sterile silence of our shattered world. The next few days were a blur of anger, grief, and a strange, detached sense of unreality. I moved out of our house, couldn't stand to be surrounded by memories, by her presence. I checked into a hotel downtown, a sleek, modern place with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. It was impersonal, anonymous, exactly what I needed. I called my lawyer, David Stern, a sharp, no-nonsense guy I'd known for years. I laid it all out for him, the affair, the clinic, the Viagra, the CCTV footage. David listened, impassive, taking notes, his expression betraying nothing. Adultery, misuse of medical license, potential malpractice, he summarized when I was done. We have grounds for a very messy, very expensive divorce, Mark, and possibly criminal charges. Criminal charges? I repeated, surprised. For Sarah? Misuse of prescription medication, breach of professional ethics. Depending on how far we want to push it, David explained, his voice pragmatic. It's there if we need it. Leverage, at the very least. I hadn't considered criminal charges. My initial reaction was just anger, betrayal. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized the extent of Sarah's actions. She hadn't just cheated on me. She had abused her position, violated her professional oath, and potentially put patients at risk. I don't want to destroy her, David, I said hesitantly. I want out. I want this to be over. David nodded, understanding. We can start with a separation agreement, see if we can negotiate a settlement. But be prepared for a fight, Mark. She's not going to make this easy. He was right. Sarah, when confronted with the reality of divorce, became a different person. The guilt and remorse vanished, replaced by a fierce defensiveness, a refusal to take responsibility. She hired a high-powered divorce attorney, a woman named Veronica Hayes, known for her aggressive tactics and ruthless efficiency. Veronica Hayes was a force to be reckoned with. Tall, impeccably dressed, with a steely gaze that could cut through steel. I met her for the first time at the initial settlement conference. She walked in, radiating confidence, her presence filling the room. She was the kind of woman who commanded attention, not with overt sexuality, but with sheer power and intellect. She had a sharp, angular face, framed by perfectly coiffed blonde hair, and eyes that missed nothing. I could see why Sarah had hired her. She was a shark, and she was ready to tear me apart. Mr. Olson, Veronica said, her voice cool and professional, extending a hand. Her grip was firm, assertive. I'm Veronica Hayes, representing Dr. Olson. Mark Olson, I replied, shaking her hand, trying to maintain my composure. David stood beside me, a silent, reassuring presence. The conference was a disaster. Veronica came out swinging, denying everything, minimizing Sarah's affair as a minor indiscretion, and accusing me of being controlling and emotionally abusive. She painted Sarah as a victim, overworked and underappreciated, seeking solace in the arms of a sympathetic patient. Sympathetic patient? I scoffed. He's her lover, Ms. Hayes, and she prescribed him Viagra under false pretenses. We have video evidence, medical records, everything. Veronica remained unfazed. Video evidence obtained illegally, Mr. Olson. Medical records accessed without authorization. Your actions are hardly those of an innocent, wronged husband. Illegally? It's my clinic. I'm a partner. I have every right to access those records. Perhaps, Veronica conceded, with a slight, almost mocking smile. But the optics, Mr. Olson, the optics. A jealous husband, spying on his wife, invading her privacy. It doesn't play well in court. The negotiation stalled, then broke down completely. Sarah, emboldened by Veronica, became increasingly demanding, insisting on full ownership of the clinic, alimony, and a disproportionate share of our assets. It was clear she was digging in for a long, bitter fight. David advised me to prepare for the worst. She's going to drag this out, Mark. She's going to try to bleed you dry. We need to be ready to play hardball. Hardball? I asked, feeling weary, drained. Is that really necessary? It is if you want to protect yourself, Mark. She's not playing fair, and neither will she. So, I braced myself for war. The divorce proceedings became a messy, public spectacle. Sarah, through Veronica, leaked damaging information to the local press, portraying me as a controlling, jealous husband who had driven her into the arms of another man. The tabloids had a field day, splashing headlines about the cheating doctor and the spying husband. My reputation, both professionally and personally, took a hit. The clinic became a battleground. Sarah tried to freeze me out, changing the locks, cutting off my access to patient records, even spreading rumors about my professional competence to our staff. It was a hostile takeover, and I was losing ground fast. In the midst of this chaos, I found an unlikely ally. Dr. Emily Carter, a young, sharp internist who had joined our practice a few years ago. Emily was ambitious, dedicated, and fiercely loyal. She had always admired Sarah, but she was also principled and ethical. When the affair scandal broke, she was initially shocked, then increasingly disillusioned by Sarah's behavior. Emily was a breath of fresh air in the toxic atmosphere of the clinic. She was petite, with fiery red hair and bright green eyes that sparkled with intelligence and determination. She was always impeccably dressed, even in her scrubs, with a subtle elegance that was both professional and alluring. She had a quick wit and a no-nonsense attitude, but beneath the tough exterior, I sensed a deep empathy and a strong moral compass. One afternoon, Emily approached me in the clinic hallway, her expression serious. "Mark, can we talk?" We went into an empty exam room, closing the door behind us. "What's up, Emily?" I asked, bracing myself for more bad news. "I know what Sarah did was wrong," she said, her voice low but firm. "And I know she's making things difficult for you." "Difficult is an understatement," I sighed. "It's a goddamn nightmare." "I might be able to help," Emily said, her eyes meeting mine. I saw something that might be important." My interest piqued. "What is it? Remember David Miller? The patient? How could I forget?" I said bitterly. "Well," Emily hesitated. "I saw him here again yesterday. After hours. He was in Sarah's office." "After hours? What were they doing?" My blood started to boil again. "I don't know exactly," Emily admitted. "I was leaving late, and I saw him go into her office. The lights were off, but I saw shadows through the blinds." "Did you see Sarah?" "No," Emily said, "but her car was still in the parking lot." My mind raced. What were they doing in the clinic after hours in the dark? It couldn't be anything good. And then a thought struck me. The security cameras. They were still there, still recording. Even if Sarah had tried to disable them, I had remote access. "Emily," I said, a plan forming in my mind. "Do you think you could you check the security footage for yesterday evening? Just to see if there's anything suspicious?" Emily hesitated for a moment, then nodded decisively. "I can do that, but if we find something, Mark, what are you going to do with it?" "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I need to know the truth. I need to know what she's really up to." That evening, after the clinic was closed, Emily and I met back at the office. She had managed to bypass Sarah's new security measures and regain access to the CCTV system. We sat in the dimly lit reception area, the monitor casting a ghostly glow on our faces as we scrolled through the recordings from the previous night. We fast-forwarded to the after-hours footage, focusing on Sarah's office. And there he was, David Miller, arriving around 7 p.m., slipping into the clinic like he owned the place. A few minutes later, Sarah's car pulled into the parking lot. She entered the clinic, and the lights in her office went out. We watched, our hearts pounding, as the grainy black and white images unfolded on the screen. The camera angle was still not ideal, but it was enough. We saw shadows moving behind the blinds, heard muffled sounds. And then, around 9 p.m., something unexpected happened. Another figure appeared on the screen. A woman, tall and slender, with long blonde hair. Veronica Hayes, Sarah's divorce attorney. She entered the clinic, also after hours, also slipping in discreetly. She went straight to Sarah's office. Emily and I exchanged stunned glances. Veronica Hayes? What was she doing here in Sarah's office after hours? And why was she meeting with Sarah and David Miller? We continued watching, our eyes glued to the screen. The three of them were in Sarah's office for over an hour. We couldn't hear their conversation, but we could see their gestures, their body language. They were huddled together, whispering, plotting. And then, around 10 p.m., Veronica Hayes left, followed shortly after by David Miller. Sarah remained in her office, alone. What the hell was that? Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. What was Veronica Hayes doing here? I don't know, I said, my mind racing. But it can't be good. They're up to something, Emily. Something big. We replayed the footage, zooming in, try to decipher any clues. And then we saw it. Just before Veronica Hayes left, Sarah handed her something. A small, white envelope. Veronica slipped it into her purse, and then she was gone. What was in the envelope? Emily wondered aloud. Money? Documents? Drugs? Drugs. The word hung in the air, heavy with implications. Viagra. Prescriptions. Sarah's medical license. A dangerous combination. Emily, I said, a chilling realization dawning on me. I think they're planning something to use against me. And I think it involves those prescriptions. We spent the rest of the night poring over the security footage, analyzing every detail, every gesture, every shadow. We couldn't hear their conversation, but we could see their faces, their expressions. And what we saw was not reassuring. They looked serious, determined, conspiratorial. They were plotting something, and I had a sinking feeling it was aimed directly at me. The next morning, I called David Stern, my lawyer. I told him about the security footage, about Veronica Hayes' late-night visit, about the mysterious envelope. David listened intently, his silence punctuated by the occasional hum of the city outside his office window. "This is concerning, Mark," he said when I finished. "Very concerning. It sounds like they're trying to manufacture something to create leverage against you." "Leverage? For what?" I asked, feeling a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. "To discredit you, Mark," David explained. "To undermine your case, to make you look bad in court. They might be trying to set you up, to make it look like you're unstable, unreliable, even dangerous." "Dangerous?" I repeated, incredulous. "How could they possibly do that?" "They could claim you're harassing Sarah, stalking her, even threatening her," David said, his voice grim. "They could use the security footage against you, twist it to make it look like you're obsessed, paranoid. And if they can tie it to your access of patient records, they could paint you as someone who's abusing his position, violating patient privacy, maybe even mentally unstable." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was a calculated, Machiavellian strategy, but it was also terrifyingly plausible. Sarah and Veronica were playing dirty, and they were playing for keeps. "We need to find out what's in that envelope, Mark," David said, his voice firm. "We need to know what they're planning." "But how?" I asked, feeling helpless, outmaneuvered. "Veronica Hayes is a fortress. She's not going to just hand over evidence against herself. We need to get inside her world, Mark," David said, a glint of steel in his voice. "We need to find someone who can get close to her, someone who can find out what she's really up to." And that's when I remembered Jessica. Jessica Thorne, a private investigator David had used in previous cases. She was discreet, resourceful, and had a reputation for getting results. She was also detractive, in a sharp, intelligent, take-no-prisoners kind of way. She was tall, with long, dark hair that she usually wore pulled back in a severe ponytail, highlighting her striking features and piercing blue eyes. She had a lean, athletic build, and moved with a quiet confidence that was both intimidating and alluring. "David," I said, a spark of hope igniting within me. "What about Jessica Thorne? Could she help us?" David paused for a moment, considering. "Jessica is good, Mark. Very good, but she's also expensive. And this is delicate. Are you sure you want to go down this road?" "I don't see any other choice, David," I said, my voice resolute. "Sarah and Veronica are playing dirty. We need to fight back. And I think Jessica Thorne is our best weapon." David nodded, a grim smile spreading across his face. "All right, Mark. Let's bring in the heavy artillery." He made the call, and within hours, Jessica Thorne was sitting across from me in David's office. She listened intently as I recounted the story, the affair, the divorce, the security footage, the mysterious envelope. She asked sharp, incisive questions, her blue eyes fixed on mine, assessing, analyzing. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "So, you want me to find out what's in that envelope, and what Veronica Hayes is planning with your wife and her lover?" "Exactly," I said, feeling a surge of hope. "Can you do it, Jessica?" She smiled, a cool, confident smile that promised results. "Mr. Olson," she said, her voice smooth and assured. "Consider it done." Jessica Thorne was a whirlwind of efficiency and professionalism. Within days, she had infiltrated Veronica Hayes' world, using a combination of charm, social engineering, and good old-fashioned detective work. She befriended Veronica's assistant, a chatty, gossipy young woman named Brittany, and started subtly gathering information. Jessica learned that Veronica was indeed planning something big, something aimed at discrediting me in court. And it did involve the prescriptions. Veronica was building a case to portray me as a jealous, unstable husband who had illegally accessed Sarah's patient records to fuel his paranoia and control. The Viagra prescription, the affair, the security footage, they were all being twisted and manipulated to paint me as the villain and Sarah as the victim. And the envelope? It contained something even more damaging than I had imagined. Jessica discovered that it held falsified patient complaints, fabricated testimonials from disgruntled former employees, and even doctored financial records, all designed to paint me as professionally incompetent and financially irresponsible. Veronica was building a case to not only win the divorce, but to destroy my reputation and career in the process. Jessica presented her findings to David and me, laying out the evidence in meticulous detail. She had documents, recordings, even photographs, all meticulously gathered and organized. It was a devastating indictment of Sarah and Veronica's conspiracy. "They're playing for keeps, Mark," Jessica said, her voice serious. "They're not just trying to win the divorce. They're trying to ruin you." "But why?" I asked, feeling a mix of anger and bewilderment. "Why are they going to such extremes?" "Because they're afraid, Mark," David explained. "They know they're in the wrong. They know they're vulnerable. And they're trying to preemptively destroy you before you can expose them." "And what about David Miller?" I asked. "Where does he fit into all this?" "He's the pawn, Mark," Jessica said, her eyes narrowing. "He's the bait. They're using him to lure you into a trap, to provoke you, to make you react in a way that they can use against you." "A trap?" I repeated, feeling a cold dread creeping into my heart. "What kind of trap?" "I'm not sure yet," Jessica admitted. "But I'm working on it. I'm digging deeper, trying to find out their endgame." Jessica continued her investigation, delving deeper into Veronica and Sarah's world. She discovered that Veronica had hired David Miller as a consultant for her law firm, paying him a hefty sum of money, presumably to keep him on their side and to ensure his cooperation in their scheme. She also uncovered evidence of secret meetings between Sarah, Veronica, and David Miller, held in various locations around the city, always discreet, always off the record. And then Jessica found something truly explosive. She discovered that Veronica Hayes had a history of unethical, even illegal, tactics in her divorce cases. She had been reprimanded by the Bar Association for fabricating evidence, intimidating witnesses, and even bribing judges. She was a shark, a ruthless operator who would stop at nothing to win. "She's dangerous, Mark," Jessica warned me, her voice grave. "Veronica Hayes is not someone to be trifled with. We need to be careful, very careful." "So, what do we do?" I asked, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "How do we fight back against someone like that?" "We fight fire with fire, Mark," David said, a steely glint in his eyes. "We expose them. We reveal their conspiracy. We turn the tables on them." And that's exactly what we decided to do. Jessica, David, and I, we formed a small, tight-knit team determined to expose Sarah and Veronica's scheme and to clear my name. We worked tirelessly, day and night, piecing together the evidence, strategizing, planning our counterattack. Jessica, with her sharp intellect and her uncanny ability to blend in, became our secret weapon. She continued to infiltrate Veronica's world, gathering more information, uncovering more secrets. She even managed to get close to David Miller, using her charm and wit to gain his trust, to subtly probe him for information. David, with his legal expertise and his strategic mind, crafted a brilliant legal strategy designed to expose Veronica's unethical tactics and to turn the tables in court. He prepared motions, subpoenas, and depositions, ready to unleash a legal barrage that would catch Sarah and Veronica completely off guard. And me? I focused on staying strong, on maintaining my composure amidst the storm. I leaned on my friends, my family, and my newfound allies, Jessica and David. I refused to be intimidated, to be bullied, to be victimized. I was determined to fight for my reputation, for my clinic, for my life. The climax of our counterattack came during a crucial court hearing. Veronica, confident and arrogant, presented her case, painting me as a jealous, unstable husband, and Sarah as the wronged, victimized wife. She presented the falsified patient complaints, the doctored financial records, the twisted security footage. She was masterful persuasive, almost convincing. But then, it was our turn. David rose to speak, his voice calm and measured, but with an undercurrent of steel. He methodically dismantled Veronica's case, point by point, exposing the inconsistencies, the fabrications, the lies. He presented Jessica's evidence, the recordings, the documents, the photographs, revealing the conspiracy between Sarah, Veronica, and David Miller. The courtroom was silent, stunned, as David laid out the truth, the ugly, shocking truth of Sarah's betrayal and Veronica's unethical tactics. He called Emily to the stand, who testified about seeing David Miller and Veronica Hayes in Sarah's office after hours, about the mysterious envelope. He even called David Miller himself, who, under oath, crumbled under David's relentless questioning, admitting to the affair, to the Viagra prescriptions, to the conspiracy with Sarah and Veronica. And then, David played our trump card. He presented the full, unedited security footage, the recordings that showed Sarah and David Miller's rendezvous in exam room 2, the recordings that exposed Veronica Hayes' clandestine meetings with them. The courtroom watched in stunned silence as the truth unfolded on the screen, undeniable, irrefutable. Veronica Hayes' carefully constructed facade shattered. Her confidence evaporated, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief, then dawning horror. Sarah, sitting beside her, paled, her eyes wide with panic. David Miller hung his head in shame, his betrayal exposed for all to see. The judge, his face grim, adjourned the hearing, promising a swift and decisive ruling. The courtroom erupted in a buzz of whispers and murmurs. The media, who had been eagerly reporting on the salacious divorce case, went into a frenzy, sensing a major scandal brewing. Outside the courtroom, chaos reigned. Reporters swarmed Veronica Hayes, demanding answers, explanations. She tried to maintain her composure, but her carefully crafted image had been irrevocably tarnished. Sarah, shielded by Veronica's security detail, slipped away, her face hidden behind dark glasses, her reputation in tatters. David Miller, abandoned and exposed, was left to face the music alone. As for me, I walked out of the courtroom, David and Jessica by my side, feeling a sense of exhaustion, but also a profound sense of relief. The truth was out. The conspiracy was exposed. I had fought back, and I had won, but the victory felt hollow, bittersweet. The damage was done. My marriage was over. My trust was shattered. My life had been irrevocably changed. The divorce was finalized quickly, decisively. Sarah was stripped of her claims to the clinic and forced to pay a hefty settlement. Veronica Hayes faced professional disciplinary action, her career in jeopardy. David Miller, his reputation ruined, disappeared from our lives. I was left to pick up the pieces, to rebuild my life from the wreckage of my marriage. The clinic, though damaged by the scandal, survived. Emily, loyal and dedicated, stepped up, becoming my partner, my confidant, my friend. We worked together, side by side, to restore the clinic's reputation, to rebuild trust with our patients, to create a new future. Life in Scottsdale was different now. The perfect facade was gone, replaced by a raw, honest reality. The pain of betrayal lingered, a dull ache in my heart. But amidst the pain, a new sense of possibility was emerging. A chance to start over, to rebuild, to find happiness again, maybe even love. Emily and I, we grew closer, our professional partnership evolving into something deeper, more personal. We spent long hours at the clinic working, talking, laughing, sharing our hopes and dreams. I found myself drawn to her energy, her intelligence, her unwavering loyalty. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than just physical attraction. It was a connection of minds, of souls, a shared understanding, a mutual respect. One evening, after a long day at the clinic, we were having dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant in Old Town Scottsdale. The desert air was warm, the stars were bright, the atmosphere was relaxed and intimate. We talked about everything, about the clinic, about the divorce, about the future. "You know, Mark," Emily said, her green eyes sparkling in the candlelight, "you've been through hell, but you've come out the other side stronger, more resilient." "I don't know about stronger," I admitted, feeling a weariness settling over me. "But definitely different. Different in a good way, she insisted, reaching across the table to take my hand. Her touch was warm, comforting, reassuring. You're more real, Mark. More authentic. You've shed the pretense, the facade. You're finally you. Her words resonated deeply within me. Maybe she was right. Maybe the pain and betrayal had stripped away the layers of artifice, the comfortable routines, the false sense of perfection. Maybe it had forced me to confront the truth about myself, about my life, about what I really wanted. Maybe, I said, squeezing her hand, my eyes meeting hers. Maybe you're right, Emily. Maybe this is a new beginning. She smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached her eyes. Maybe it is, Mark. Maybe it is.